Jake Morrison was having a bad day. The air recycler on Deck 7 was making strange noises again. He lay on his back under the machine, trying to fix a pipe that kept leaking green fluid onto his face. His best friend Pete Collins sat nearby, eating a sandwich and watching Jake work. "You know what your problem is?" Pete said, taking another bite. "You never take any risks. You just fix machines all day." Jake wiped the green stuff off his forehead. "I like fixing machines. Machines make sense. You put the right part in the right place and they work. But don't you want something more exciting?" Pete asked. "Like that lottery thing they announced yesterday." Jake had heard about the lottery. The human government wanted to make friends with the Solari Empire. The Solari were tall aliens who could make fire with their hands. They had been at war with humans for 3 years before signing a peace treaty last month. Now both sides wanted to show they could get along. The prize was a dinner date with son Marshal Zaraketh 9. She was the most famous Solari warrior in the galaxy. She had won dozens of battles and was known for being very smart and very dangerous. The human news said she was also the most beautiful female in the Solari Empire. "I'm not entering that lottery," Jake said, tightening a bolt. "Can you imagine me on a date with an alien war hero? She would probably set me on fire by accident." Pete laughed. "Come on, Jake, when will you ever get another chance like this? Besides, what are the odds you would actually win?" Jake had to admit Pete was right about the odds. There were over 50,000 humans in the colonial fleet. The chance of his name being picked was almost zero. Maybe it would be funny to enter. At least it would give Pete something else to talk about. "Fine," Jake said, sliding out from under the machine. "I'll enter your stupid lottery. But when I don't win, you have to stop bugging me about taking risks." Pete grinned and pulled out his tablet. "Deal, what's your full name and ID number?" Jake told him the information. Pete typed it into the lottery website and hit submit. The screen flashed green and showed a message. Entry confirmed. "Good luck, Jake Morrison." "There," Pete said. "Now you're officially in the running to date the most dangerous woman in 3-star systems." Jake shook his head and went back to work on the air recycler. He forgot all about the lottery until 3 days later. He was in the middle of replacing a water filter when his tablet started beeping. The sound meant he had an official message from Fleet Command. That was unusual. Maintenance workers like Jake almost never got messages from the important people who ran the ships. Jake wiped his hands on his work clothes and picked up the tablet. The message header made his heart stop. Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program. Winner notification. His hands started shaking as he read the message. It was real. His name had been drawn. Jake Morrison, age 28, maintenance technician 3rd class, had won a date with the most powerful woman in the Solari Empire. "Pete," he called out. "Pete, get over here." Pete came running from the other side of the engine room. "What's wrong? Did something explode?" Jake held up the tablet. "I won." "Won what?" "The lottery, the date. I won the date with the son Marshal." Pete stared at the tablet, then at Jake, then back at the tablet. "Holy stars," he whispered. "You actually won." Jake sat down hard on a toolbox. "What am I going to do, Pete?" "I can't go on a date with an alien war hero. I fix air recyclers for a living. I've never even been to another planet." "Hey, calm down," Pete said, sitting next to him. "This is good news. This is the adventure you needed." "Adventure?" Jake laughed, but it didn't sound happy. Pete, the Solari express emotions by setting things on fire. Their idea of a romantic dinner probably involves actual flames. "I could die." Pete patted his shoulder. "Look, Jake, you entered this thing. You can't back out now. Besides, think about what this means. You're representing all of humanity. This is bigger than just you." Jake looked at the message again. The date was scheduled for next week at Kepler Station, a neutral meeting place between human and alien space. He would be flown there on a special transport ship. The human government would pay for everything, including new clothes that were supposedly fire-resistant. "I need to learn about Solari culture," Jake said, standing up. "I need to know what to say, how to act, what not to do." "Now you're talking," Pete said, grinning. "We've got a week to turn you into the most charming human in the fleet." Jake spent the next 7 days reading everything he could find about the Solari Empire. He learned that they came from a planet near a red giant star. The heat there was so intense that their bodies had evolved to control plasma energy. They valued courage, honor, and strength above all else. Their society was organized around military ranks, and son Marshal was the highest position anyone could achieve. Zaraketh 9 had earned her rank by winning the Battle of the Burning Nebula. She had used her personal fighter ship to destroy an entire pirate fleet. The Solari considered her a living legend. She was 34 years old, which was young for a son Marshal. She had never been married and rarely dated anyone. Jake also learned some disturbing facts about Solari dating customs. They showed affection by sharing heat. A first date usually involved the couple sitting very close together, while the Solari partner raised their body temperature. Human skin could only handle so much heat before it started to burn. "Maybe I should fake being sick," Jake said on the morning he was supposed to leave for Kepler Station. "Too late for that," Pete replied, helping him pack. "The transport ship is already waiting. Besides, you've got that special suit they sent you." The suit was made of some kind of advanced fabric that was supposed to protect Jake from heat. It looked like regular clothes but felt strange against his skin. The scientists who made it said it could handle temperatures up to 500 degrees. Jake hoped they were right. As he walked toward the transport ship, Jake tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. He was just a maintenance worker who was good at fixing broken things. Now he was about to have dinner with the most famous alien in the galaxy. The ship's pilot, a cheerful woman named Captain Lisa Park, tried to make him feel better during the flight to Kepler Station. "Don't worry so much," she said. "The worst thing that can happen is you embarrass yourself. And even if you do, you'll have a great story to tell." Jake stared out the window at the stars rushing by. In a few hours he would meet son Marshal Zara Keth 9. He had no idea what to expect, but he knew his life was about to change forever. Jake had never seen anything like Kepler Station. The space station was huge, with spinning rings that created artificial gravity. Ships from dozens of different species were docked at the outer ports. Through the windows he could see aliens walking through the corridors. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange he couldn't figure out which end was the head. Captain Park walked with him to the diplomatic section of the station. "Remember," she said, "just be yourself. The Solari respect honesty above everything else." Jake nodded even though his mouth felt too dry to speak. His palms were sweating inside the special gloves that came with his heat-resistant suit. He kept checking his appearance in every reflective surface they passed. His hair looked messy, and he was pretty sure he had a stain on his shirt from the ship's lunch. The restaurant was called Neutral Ground. It was designed to accommodate many different alien species. The tables could adjust their height, the chairs could change shape, and the air could be filtered to remove gases that might be poisonous to certain creatures. Jake's table was in a section with extra fire suppression systems. He arrived 10 minutes early and sat down to wait. The human diplomat who had briefed him said that Solari considered it rude to be late. Jake ordered water and tried to calm his nerves by reading the menu. Most of the dishes had names he couldn't pronounce, and several came with warnings about extreme temperatures. At exactly 7 o'clock, she walked in. Son Marshal Zara Keth 9 was taller than Jake had expected. She stood almost 7 feet high with bronze-colored skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Her hair was dark red like the color of hot metal, and it moved slightly as if stirred by invisible heat. She wore a form-fitting uniform that was both elegant and military. Jake could see small flames dancing along the edges of her sleeves. She spotted him immediately and walked over with confident steps. Jake stood up quickly, almost knocking over his water glass. "You must be Jake Morrison," she said. Her voice was warm and rich, with an accent that reminded him of distant thunder. "I am Zara Keth 9, son Marshal of the 3rd Fleet." "Yes, ma'am," Jake said, then realized he was supposed to shake her hand. He reached out carefully, remembering the warnings about Solari body heat. Her handshake was firm but brief. Jake felt warmth spread up his arm, but the special gloves protected him from being burned. Zara smiled, showing teeth that were whiter than human teeth and slightly pointed. "Please sit down," she said. "There is no need for such formality. This is meant to be a social occasion." Jake sat back down, trying not to stare. Up close, he could see that her skin really did have a metallic shine to it. Tiny sparks occasionally flickered across her fingers when she moved her hands. She was both beautiful and terrifying. "I must admit," Zara said, looking at the menu, "I'm curious about human food. We Solari prefer our meals quite warm. I hope the kitchen here can accommodate both our needs." The waiter, a nervous-looking man with fireproof clothing, came to take their order. Zara chose something called flame-seared starbeast that came with a warning label. Jake picked the safest thing he could find, grilled chicken with vegetables. "Tell me about your work," Zara said after the waiter left. "The information I received said you are a maintenance technician. Jake felt his face turn red. Here he was, sitting across from the most famous warrior in the galaxy, and she wanted to hear about fixing broken machines. I keep the ships running, he said simply. When something breaks, I figure out how to fix it. It's not very exciting. Zara leaned forward and Jake felt the temperature around the table rise by several degrees. I find that fascinating. In the Solari military, we value those who can solve problems under pressure. Keeping a ship operational in deep space requires great skill and creativity. Jake hadn't thought about his job that way before. Well, I guess it can be challenging sometimes. Like when we lost main power during that asteroid storm last year. I had to reroute the entire electrical system using spare parts and duct tape. Duct tape? Zara asked, raising one eyebrow. It's a human invention, Jake explained. It's a strong adhesive tape that sticks to almost anything. We use it to fix things temporarily until we can make proper repairs. Zara's eyes lit up with genuine interest. Your species has a reputation for creative solutions. The Solari military has studied human tactics, and we are always amazed by your ability to win battles with inferior equipment. Jake felt some of his nervousness fade away. We just make do with what we have. My grandfather used to say that humans are too stupid to know when something is impossible, so we try it anyway. Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of metal. I like that philosophy. Perhaps that is why your species has spread so far through the galaxy in such a short time. Their food arrived, and Jake was relieved to see that his chicken looked normal. Zara's meal, on the other hand, was literally on fire. Blue flames danced across the surface of her steak, and the vegetables glowed like hot coals. She began eating with obvious enjoyment. Is it good? Jake asked, trying not to stare at her flaming dinner. Excellent, she said, though perhaps a bit cool for my taste. At home we cook our food with plasma torches. Jake was starting to relax and enjoy the conversation. Zara was nothing like the cold, dangerous warrior he had expected. She was intelligent, funny, and genuinely interested in learning about human culture. She asked questions about Earth, about human music and art, and about what it was like to grow up on a colony ship. In return, she told him stories about the Solari homeworld, where the surface temperature was hot enough to melt lead. She described cities built inside active volcanoes and sports that involved jumping between lava flows. Her people had evolved in one of the harshest environments in the galaxy, which explained their ability to control fire. The first time we encountered humans, she said, we thought you would die within minutes of leaving your ships. Your bodies seemed so fragile, your skin so thin. We could not understand how you had survived long enough to develop space travel. What changed your mind? Jake asked. Zara smiled. We watched you build colonies on worlds that we considered uninhabitable. Frozen planets, poisonous atmospheres, crushing gravity. You humans just put on protective suits and started working. We began to realize that what makes a species strong is not physical power, but the refusal to give up. Jake was reaching for his water glass when disaster struck. He had been gesturing while talking, and his arm brushed against the flame-resistant flower arrangement in the center of the table. The flowers were designed to withstand Solari body heat, but Jake's cotton sleeve was not. The fabric caught fire instantly. Jake jumped up in panic, trying to pat out the flames that were crawling up his arm. The fire suppression system activated, spraying them both with a fine mist of flame-retardant chemicals. Other diners turned to stare as Jake danced around, flapping his burning sleeve. He expected Zara to be angry or embarrassed. Instead, when he looked at her, her eyes were shining with what could only be described as delight. How wonderful, she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. Small sparks flew from her palms. You are offering to burn your clothing as a display of trust and vulnerability. Most males of my species would never be so bold on a first date. Jake stopped flapping his arm and stared at her. What? Among my people, Zara explained, still beaming. Sharing fire is the highest form of intimacy. By allowing your garment to burn, you are showing that you trust me not to let you come to harm. It is incredibly romantic. The restaurant staff, clearly experienced with interspecies dating mishaps, quickly brought Jake a replacement shirt and a complimentary dessert for both of them. The new shirt was made of the same fire-resistant material as his suit. I have to be honest, Jake said as he put on the new shirt. That was completely an accident. I didn't know about the fire-sharing thing. Zara's smile grew even wider. That makes it even more impressive. You acted on pure instinct, which means your feelings are genuine. Jake wasn't sure what feelings she was talking about, but he decided not to argue. The rest of the evening went smoothly, with no more clothing catching fire. They talked about books they had read, places they wanted to visit, and the challenges of maintaining peace between their species. When it was time to leave, Zara walked with him to the docking bay where his transport ship was waiting. "I have enjoyed this evening more than I expected," she said. "Would you be interested in seeing me again?" Jake looked up at her glowing bronze face and realized that, despite the burning shirt and the flame-resistant dinner, he had enjoyed himself too. Zara was unlike anyone he had ever met, human or alien. She was brilliant, powerful, and surprisingly kind. "I would like that very much," he said. Zara smiled and placed her hand briefly on his shoulder. He felt warmth spread through the fire-resistant fabric, but this time it was pleasant rather than frightening. "Until next time, Jake Morrison," she said. "Try not to set yourself on fire before then." As his ship pulled away from Kepler Station, Jake looked back at the lights growing smaller in the distance. He had survived his first date with the most dangerous woman in 3 star systems. More importantly, he was looking forward to the second one. His tablet was already showing messages from Pete, from his supervisor, and from several news reporters who had somehow heard about the date. Jake woke up the next morning to find his tablet buzzing with hundreds of messages. News of his date with Sun Marshal Zaraketh 9 had spread through the human fleet faster than a computer virus. Everyone from his old teachers to distant relatives he had never met was trying to contact him. Pete was waiting outside his quarters with 2 cups of coffee and a huge grin. "So how does it feel to be the most famous maintenance worker in human space?" Jake rubbed his eyes and took one of the cups. "Famous for what? Having dinner without dying?" "Don't play dumb," Pete said, following him into the small room. "The news feeds are calling you the man who melted the Sun Marshal's heart. There's even a betting pool about whether you'll have a second date." Jake turned on his wall screen and immediately regretted it. His face was plastered across every news channel. The headlines were embarrassing. "Love burns hot. Human charms alien warrior." And worst of all, "Local nobody dates galaxy's most dangerous woman." "Turn it off," Jake said. But Pete was already changing channels. "Look at this one," Pete said excitedly. They interviewed Commander Stevens about interspecies relations. "He says your date might be the most important diplomatic event in human history." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. Diplomatic event? It was just dinner. But as he watched the news coverage, Jake began to understand that his personal life had become much more complicated. Politicians were calling for more cultural exchange programs. Military analysts were discussing the strategic benefits of human-Solari cooperation. Even the stock market was responding positively to what reporters were calling the romance that could change the galaxy. His tablet chimed with an incoming message. Jake expected another interview request, but instead, he saw the official seal of the Solari Empire. His heart started beating faster as he opened it. The message was from Zara herself, written in simple English. "Jake Morrison. I have enjoyed our correspondence since our meeting. My superiors are interested in continuing cultural exchanges. Would you be available for a second meeting? This time perhaps we could tour the Flame Nebula in my personal ship. I promise to keep the temperature at levels suitable for human survival. Respectfully, Zaraketh 9, Sun Marshal of the 3rd Fleet." Pete read the message over Jake's shoulder. "She wants to take you on a space tour in her personal warship. Jake, do you realize what this means? That I'm probably going to die in space instead of in a restaurant?" "No, you idiot. It means she likes you. Really likes you. Solari don't invite just anyone aboard their personal ships." Jake spent the rest of the day trying to avoid the growing crowd of reporters outside his quarters. His supervisor, Chief Martinez, called him into the office for what she claimed was a routine meeting. "Morrison," she said, "I've been looking at your service record. You've been doing maintenance work for 6 years, and you've never requested a promotion or a transfer to a different department." "I like maintenance work," Jake said carefully. "Well, that might be changing," Martinez replied. "Fleet Command is very interested in your new relationship with the Solari Sun Marshal. They're talking about assigning you to the Diplomatic Corps as a cultural liaison." Jake's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I'm not diplomat material. I fix broken things. I don't know anything about politics or negotiations." Martinez smiled. "According to the reports from Kepler Station, you managed to charm one of the most powerful aliens in the galaxy just by being yourself. That's exactly the kind of authenticity the Diplomatic Corps needs." Before Jake could argue further, his tablet chimed again. This time the message came from Solari Space. But it wasn't from Zara. The sender was identified as War Commander Thexmol 7, Strategic Analysis Division, Human Jake Morrison, the message read in stilted English. Your actions at Kepler Station have created significant discussion among our people. The Sun Marshal's report describes humans as possessing fire-heart courage and innovative survival instincts. We request permission to study your species more closely. We are particularly interested in your willingness to endure burning as a casual romantic gesture. Jake stared at the message in horror. They think humans enjoy being set on fire, he told Pete later. They think we're some kind of masochistic warrior race that uses pain as foreplay. Pete laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Well, technically you did let your shirt burn and then agree to a second date. From their perspective, that probably does look pretty tough. This is getting out of hand, Jake said. I just wanted to have a quiet dinner. Now I'm accidentally convincing an entire alien empire that humans are fireproof super soldiers. But when Jake sent his reply to Zara accepting her invitation for the second date, he found himself genuinely excited. Despite all the political complications and media attention, he wanted to see her again. Their conversation at the restaurant had been the most interesting evening of his life. The second date took place a week later. Zara's personal ship, the Solar Wind, was unlike any human vessel Jake had ever seen. It was sleek and organic-looking, with a hull that seemed to pulse with contained energy. The interior was kept at a temperature that would have been uncomfortably hot for most humans. But Jake's environmental suit regulated his body heat perfectly. Zara gave him a tour of her ship, explaining how Solari technology worked. Their engines used controlled plasma reactions instead of conventional fuel. Their weapon systems channeled the same energy that Solari could generate naturally. Even their life support systems were based on heat management, rather than air filtration. Your human ships fascinate us, Zara said as they stood on the bridge, watching the flame nebula swirl in brilliant colors outside the windows. They are so fragile, held together with what you call duct tape and hope. Yet they carry your people farther from home than any species has ever traveled. We build them tough enough to do the job, Jake said. Humans have always been good at making do with less. That is what I find most attractive about your species, Zara said, turning to look at him. You do not wait for perfect conditions. You see something that needs to be done and you find a way to do it. They were standing close together on the observation deck when it happened. Zara was pointing out a particularly beautiful star formation when she got excited about explaining Solari stellar navigation techniques. Her natural body heat spiked with her enthusiasm, and Jake's emergency communicator, clipped to his belt, began to smoke. Within seconds, the device was glowing red hot. Jake quickly unclipped it and dropped it on the deck, where it melted into a small puddle of plastic and metal. Zara immediately stepped back, her bronze skin darkening with what Jake was learning to recognize as embarrassment. I am so sorry, she said. I should have warned you to keep electronic devices at a safe distance. I will replace your equipment immediately. Jake looked down at the melted remains of his communicator and started laughing. Don't worry about it, he said. I can build a better one. You can build communications equipment? Zara asked, her embarrassment replaced by curiosity. Sure, Jake said. I've been fixing and building electronics since I was a kid. My grandfather taught me. He said that if you understand how something works, you can always make it work better. Zara's eyes lit up with genuine admiration. Would you show me? I would very much like to learn human engineering techniques. They spent the next 2 hours in the ship's workshop, where Jake used spare parts and tools to build a new communicator from scratch. Zara watched with fascination as he explained each step of the process. She was particularly impressed by his ability to adapt components designed for completely different purposes. This is remarkable, she said, watching him solder connections with steady hands. You are creating a functional device using parts that were never meant to work together. That's pretty much the definition of human engineering, Jake said, testing the new communicator's circuits. We take whatever we can find and make it do what we need it to do. When the device powered up successfully, Zara clapped her hands together, sending small sparks flying. Incredible! You have just demonstrated why the Solari High Command has become so interested in human innovation. Your people have a talent for solutions that no one else would consider. As they flew back toward human space, Jake realized that something had changed between them. The awkwardness of their first date was gone, replaced by genuine friendship and mutual respect. Zara wasn't just attracted to his exotic alienness, she genuinely appreciated his skills and his way of thinking. "I have a confession to make," Zara said as they approached the docking bay where Jake's transport was waiting. "This meeting was not entirely social. My government asked me to learn more about human capabilities." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "So this was just a spy mission?" "It began that way," Zara said quickly. "But it has become much more. Jake Morrison, you have shown me that strength comes in many forms. Your people may not have our physical power or our advanced technology, but you have something equally valuable: the courage to keep trying when others would give up." She paused, and Jake could see flames flickering in her eyes. "I hope you will not think less of me for this deception. I find myself caring for you in ways that I did not expect." Jake looked at her earnest bronze face and realized that his feelings had evolved too. Zara wasn't just an alien dignitary. 3 weeks after the Nebula tour, Jake's quiet life as a maintenance worker was completely over. He had been transferred to the diplomatic corps, given a fancy new title as cultural exchange specialist, and assigned quarters near the command section of the ship. His new job mostly involved answering endless questions about human behavior and writing reports about Solari culture. The reports were easy to write because he and Zara had been exchanging messages almost daily. She told him about her duties as Sun Marshal, her responsibilities leading the Third Fleet, and the political challenges of maintaining peace between their species. In return, he shared stories about his childhood on the colony ships, his work keeping ancient human technology running, and his dreams of someday seeing Earth. Pete visited him in his new quarters, bringing real coffee instead of the synthetic stuff they usually drank. "Look at you," he said, looking around the larger room with its actual windows. Private bathroom, real food dispenser, and a view of space. Not bad for a guy who used to sleep next to the engine room. "I miss the engine room," Jake said honestly. "At least there I knew what I was supposed to be doing." His tablet chimed with another message from Zara. This one was different from her usual friendly reports about fleet movements or interesting stellar phenomena. The text was formal and brief. "Jake Morrison, I have been summoned to appear before the High Command on Pyros Prime. They wish to discuss my relationship with you and its impact on Solari human relations. I may not be able to communicate for several days. Please do not worry if you do not hear from me. Respectfully, Zara Keth9." Jake read the message twice, his stomach sinking with each word. "Pete, I think I'm in trouble." Pete read the message over his shoulder. "What's Pyros Prime?" "The Solari homeworld. It's where their government meets. If they're calling her in to talk about our relationship, it can't be good news." Jake spent the next 2 days researching everything he could find about Solari politics and the High Command. What he learned made him even more worried. The High Command consisted of 7 war marshals, each representing a different faction within Solari society. Some favored continued cooperation with humans, while others believed their species should remain isolated. Sun Marshal Zara Keth9 was the youngest member of the High Command by almost 20 years. Her rapid rise through the ranks had made her many enemies among the older, more traditional Solari leaders. If they disapproved of her relationship with a human, they could remove her from command or even exile her from Solari space. On the 3rd day, Jake received a message that made his blood run cold. It came from the Solari High Command itself, written in formal diplomatic language. "Human Jake Morrison, the Sun Marshal Zara Keth9 has requested that you appear before this body to answer questions regarding your species and your relationship with our officer. Your presence is required on Pyros Prime within 5 standard days. Transport will be provided. Your safety will be guaranteed according to diplomatic protocol." Jake stared at the message in horror. Pyros Prime was one of the most dangerous planets in known space. The surface temperature averaged over 200 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere was mostly nitrogen and sulfur compounds that were toxic to humans. Even with the best environmental suits, most humans could only survive on the planet for a few hours. "I have to go," he told Pete. "If I don't show up, they might think humans are cowards. That could ruin everything Zara has been working for." "Jake, you could die on that planet," Pete said seriously. "The environmental suits they make can't protect you from that kind of heat for very long." "Then I guess I better make my testimony quick," Jake replied. trying to sound more confident than he felt. Fleet Command was not happy about Jake's decision to go to Pyros Prime. Commander Stevens called him into a meeting with 3 admirals, 2 scientists and a medical officer. "Morrison," Stevens said, "we can't allow you to take this risk. If something happens to you on the Solari homeworld, it could cause a diplomatic crisis." "With all due respect, sir," Jake said, "if I don't go, it will definitely cause a diplomatic crisis. The Solari will think humans are too weak to stand up for themselves." The chief medical officer, Dr. Amanda Ross, spoke up. "We've been working with the engineering department to modify the standard environmental suits. We think we can keep you alive for maybe 4 hours in Pyros Prime's environment. After that, the suit's cooling systems will fail." 4 hours should be enough, Jake said. "How long can a tribunal hearing last?" Dr. Ross and the engineers spent 3 days working on Jake's suit. They added extra cooling units, backup power systems, and emergency beacon. The final version was so bulky that Jake could barely move in it. But the computer simulation showed it would protect him from Pyros Prime's deadly environment. The journey to the Solari homeworld took 6 days aboard a special diplomatic transport. Jake spent the time studying Solari law and practicing his testimony. He had decided to tell the High Command the truth about humans, that they were not the fireproof super warriors the Solari believed them to be, but something potentially more valuable. Pyros Prime looked like a vision of hell from space. The planet was covered in active volcanoes, lava flows, and cities that glowed with contained plasma energy. Jake's transport ship docked at an orbital station because the planet's surface was too hot for human-built spacecraft to land safely. A Solari shuttle carried him down to the capital city, which was built inside the crater of an extinct volcano. Even through his suit's cooling systems, Jake could feel the terrible heat pressing in around him. The shuttle's pilot, a young Solari female, kept checking to make sure he was still conscious. The High Command met in a chamber carved from solid volcanic rock. 7 massive chairs were arranged in a semicircle, each one occupied by a Solari war marshal. They were all taller and more imposing than Zara, with skin that glowed like molten metal and flames that danced around their bodies. Zara stood in the center of the chamber, her usually confident posture showing signs of strain. When she saw Jake enter in his bulky environmental suit, her eyes widened with surprise and something that might have been gratitude. The central figure, War Marshal HFY War, spoke first. His voice rumbled like an earthquake. "Human Jake Morrison, you have traveled far from your cold ships to appear before us. This shows either courage or foolishness. We will determine which." Jake activated his suit's external speakers so his voice could be heard clearly. "Honored War Marshals, I come here willingly to answer your questions and to speak for my people. Your relationship with Sun Marshal Zara Keth 9 has caused much discussion among our people," said another War Marshal, her flames burning brighter than the others. "Some believe humans possess warrior spirits worthy of respect. Others think you are weak creatures who seek to corrupt our strongest leaders." Jake felt sweat running down his face inside his helmet. The suit's cooling system was already working at maximum capacity. "May I tell you what I think makes humans strong?" "Speak," rumbled HFY War. Jake took a deep breath and began his testimony. He told them about human history, about how his species had survived ice ages and plagues and wars by refusing to give up. He explained how humans had spread across the galaxy, not because they were the strongest or smartest species, but because they were too stubborn to accept that something was impossible. "We don't have your physical power," Jake said, his voice echoing in the stone chamber. "We can't generate plasma or survive in extreme heat. But we have something else. We adapt, we learn. We take whatever resources we have and find ways to make them work." As he spoke, Jake noticed that his suit's temperature gauges were climbing into the red zone. The cooling system was beginning to fail under the chamber's intense heat. He had maybe 30 minutes left before the suit would no longer protect him. "You speak of adaptation," said War Marshal HFY War, "but you required an artificial shell to survive in our environment." "How is this strength?" "Because I came anyway," Jake said simply. "Your planet could kill me in minutes without this suit, but I'm here because someone I care about needed me to be here. That's what humans do. We find a way, even when the odds are against us." One of the younger War Marshals leaned forward. "The Sun Marshal has told us that you willingly allowed your clothing to burn as a gesture of trust. Is this true?" Jake glanced at Zara, who was watching him with obvious concern. She could probably see his suit's warning lights flashing. That was an accident, he admitted. But when Sun Marshal Zaraketh 9 explained what it meant to her people, I was honored that she interpreted it as a sign of respect. And you would do it again? The War Marshal pressed. Jake's suit alarm started beeping. The cooling system had less than 10 minutes of power remaining. He was starting to feel dizzy from the heat, but he forced himself to stand straight. Yes, he said. If it would prove to you that humans value courage and friendship above personal safety, I would do it again. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of Jake's labored breathing and his suit's failing systems. Then Zara stepped forward. Honored War Marshals, she said, her voice carrying the authority of her rank. This human has risked his life to stand before you and defend both his species and our friendship. His environmental suit is failing, and he will die if we do. 6 months after Jake's testimony on Pyros Prime, he found himself facing a problem he had never imagined, planning a wedding that wouldn't accidentally kill the groom. The engagement had been announced 3 months earlier, after Jake had fully recovered from his heat injuries and returned to human space. The news had caused celebrations on Earth and spontaneous plasma displays on dozens of Solari worlds. Politicians called it the marriage of the century. Scientists called it the most complex logistics challenge in interspecies relations. Jake called it the best decision he had ever made. He stood in his quarters aboard the diplomatic station, where the wedding would take place, looking at himself in the mirror. His wedding outfit was a masterpiece of human engineering, a formal suit made from the same heat-resistant materials as his environmental gear, but tailored to look elegant rather than bulky. The fabric was a deep blue that complemented his eyes, and it could withstand temperatures up to 600 degrees. Pete was helping him with the final preparations. I still can't believe you're actually doing this, Pete said, adjusting Jake's fire-resistant bow tie. A year ago you were fixing air recyclers, and now you're about to marry the most powerful woman in 3 star systems. She's not just powerful, Jake said, checking his appearance one more time. She's smart and funny and brave, and she thinks I'm worth melting electronic equipment for. The wedding ceremony was taking place on Unity Station, a new facility built specifically for interspecies events. The station had sections designed for different atmospheric requirements, gravity levels, and temperature ranges. Jake and Zara's ceremony would be held in the central chamber, which had been engineered to accommodate both human and Solari needs. The guest list included dignitaries from 17 different species. Fleet Admiral Harrison would represent humanity, while War Marshal Keithfor I himself would stand for the Solari Empire. The media attention was enormous, with reporters from across the galaxy requesting interviews and broadcasting rights. Jake had insisted on keeping the ceremony itself simple, despite the complex technical requirements. The challenge was combining human and Solari wedding traditions without creating a safety hazard or diplomatic incident. Human weddings involved exchanging rings and sharing vows. Solari weddings included a ritual called the Unity Flame, where both partners would create fire together and let it burn throughout their married life. The compromise solution involved specially designed rings that could channel and contain Solari plasma energy, allowing Jake to participate in the flame ceremony without being incinerated. Dr. Ross had spent weeks perfecting Jake's wedding suit. The cooling system is built into the fabric itself, she explained during the final fitting. It should keep you comfortable even if Zara gets excited and her temperature spikes. Just try not to hug her too enthusiastically during the ceremony. An hour before the wedding, Jake received an unexpected visitor. War Marshal Keithfor I arrived at his quarters, accompanied by 2 junior Solari officers. The massive alien had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. Human Jake Morrison, the War Marshal said formally, I come to speak with you before you join our people through marriage. Jake straightened his shoulders and tried to project confidence despite feeling intimidated by the 7-foot-tall warrior whose skin glowed like heated metal. I'm honored by your visit, War Marshal. The Sun Marshal Zaraketh 9 is precious to our people, Keithfor I continued. She is young but wise, strong but compassionate. She has proven herself in battle and in leadership. Do you understand the responsibility you are accepting? I understand that I love her, Jake said simply. And I understand that love means putting her happiness above my own comfort, even when that comfort involves not being set on fire. The War Marshal's flames flickered with what Jake had learned to recognize as Solari amusement. You have shown courage in facing our high command, wisdom in your words about human strength, and loyalty in your devotion to our son Marshal. These are qualities we respect. HFY reached into his ceremonial robes and pulled out a small object that glowed with contained plasma. This is a traditional Solari wedding gift, a flame stone from the sacred fires of our homeworld. It will burn for 1,000 years without fuel, a symbol of eternal love. Jake accepted the gift carefully, feeling its warmth through his heat-resistant gloves. Thank you, War Marshal. This is incredibly generous. Do not thank me yet, HFY said with what might have been a smile. Wait until you have survived the Unity Flame ceremony. The wedding ceremony itself was both beautiful and terrifying. The central chamber had been decorated with flowers that could survive extreme temperatures and crystalline structures that reflected and amplified light. Representatives from dozens of species filled the specially designed seating areas, each section climate-controlled for different atmospheric requirements. Zara entered wearing a gown that was literally made of contained plasma energy, shaped and held in place by advanced Solari technology. She looked like a living star, radiant and powerful and breathtakingly beautiful. When she saw Jake waiting at the altar, her glow brightened noticeably, causing the temperature monitors to spike into the yellow zone. The ceremony was conducted by both a human chaplain and a Solari flamekeeper, with each tradition being honored in turn. Jake's hands shook slightly as he placed the specially designed ring on Zara's finger, watching the metal glow briefly as it adapted to her body temperature. When Zara placed his ring on his finger, Jake felt a warm tingling sensation that spread up his arm. The ring's cooling systems activated automatically, protecting him from burns while allowing him to feel connected to his bride's natural fire. The Unity Flame ceremony was the most challenging part. Jake and Zara stood together holding a ceremonial torch while she channeled plasma energy into the flame. The heat was intense even through his protective suit, but Jake stood firm as they spoke their vows. I promise to burn bright for you, Zara said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, to warm your days and light your path through the darkness of space. I promise to keep you grounded, Jake replied, feeling sweat running down his face inside his suit, to be your anchor when the flames burn too hot, and to never stop finding ways to surprise you. The flame flared higher as their vows concluded, and the assembled guests cheered in a dozen different languages. Jake and Zara kissed carefully through the filtered atmosphere system of his suit, while photographers captured the moment for history. The reception was held in multiple sections of the station to accommodate the different environmental needs of their guests. Jake and Zara moved between the human section, where the temperature was comfortable, and the Solari section, where Jake needed his suit's cooling systems just to survive. During dinner, Jake's old supervisor, Chief Martinez, approached their table. Morrison, she said with a grin, I have to admit, when you entered that lottery, I never expected it to lead to this. Neither did I, Jake said, looking at his new wife as she conversed with a group of alien diplomats in 3 different languages. But I'm glad it did. Pete gave a speech during the human portion of the reception, telling embarrassing stories about Jake's bachelor days and making jokes about fire safety. I always said Jake needed to take more risks, he concluded, raising his glass. I just never thought he'd take one that required an environmental suit. The Solari portion of the reception featured traditional flame dancing and plasma sculptures. Jake watched in amazement as Solari artists created intricate works of art from pure energy, each one a wedding gift that would burn for centuries. As the evening wound down, Jake and Zara found themselves alone on one of the station's observation decks looking out at the stars. Zara had dimmed her natural glow to a soft warmth that Jake could enjoy without his suit's cooling systems. Do you think we can make this work? Jake asked, taking her hand carefully. The cultural differences, the physical challenges, the political pressure. Zara squeezed his hand gently, her touch warm but not painful. Jake Morrison, you survived testifying before the High Command on Pyros Prime. You convinced 7 war marshals that humans deserve respect. You've learned to appreciate flame-cooked food and sleep in temperatures that would kill most of your species. I think you can handle being married to me. When you put it that way, Jake said, smiling, it does sound manageable. Besides, Zara added with a mischievous grin, someone needs to keep you from setting yourself on fire. You humans seem to have a talent for accidental combustion. They were interrupted by a soft chime from Jake's newly modified communicator, the one he had built to replace the device Zara had accidentally melted. The message was from Fleet Command, offering Jake a new position as director of the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program. They want me to help other couples navigate cross-species relationships, Jake explained after reading the message. Apparently, our success story has inspired dozens of other interspecies romances. Zara's eyes lit up with interest. That sounds like important work. You would be helping to build bridges between entire civilizations. It means a lot of travel, Jake said. Visiting different worlds, meeting alien species, probably getting into more situations where I'm dangerously out of my depth. Perfect, Zara said.